What's up guys, Frankenstein again from Millionaire Mindset. ETF investing is very common these days. Why is that? Well, ETFs offer flexibility that mutual funds or individual stocks do not offer. The very first American ETF debuted in the mid-90s, but currently there are over 2,000 ETFs. That should give you an idea of how quickly this method of investing has grown. Before I give you my top 10 ETFs, let's very quickly talk about what ETFs are and a few things to pay attention to. So what are exchange-traded funds or ETFs? ETFs trade just like a regular stock. You can buy and sell them normally like you would buy or sell a stock from your brokerage account. A stock ETF is a basket of stocks. For example, the ETF IVV holds all of these companies. So when you buy IVV, you're basically buying a small share of all of these companies. The main purpose of ETFs is to provide diversification. Instead of holding a couple of stocks in your portfolio and worrying about how that individual stock does, you could instead buy an ETF, which holds a huge basket of stocks, and not worry about an individual company. This helps you balance risk. Now, this may seem very simple, but there are over 2,000 ETFs out there. How do you know which ones to invest in? Well, that depends on your investment objective and your time frame. Since this channel is about investing long term, the ETFs I have picked will help you retire comfortably. There are two very important things to pay attention to over here. Number one, the expense ratio. Most ETFs will have an expense ratio. Now, what is an expense ratio? In simple words, it is how much the ETF management is charging you per annum for the ETF that you're holding in your account. So you need to pick quality ETFs that have low or very low expense ratio. Let's say by the end of the year, your ETF assets are worth $1,000. If the expense ratio is 0.04%, that means by the end of the year, 40 cents will be deducted from your holdings value. Remember, this is the annual fee. 40 cents as an annual fee is very reasonable in my opinion. It is very important that you pay attention to this number, as expense ratios can make a huge dent over time. I like expense ratios to be around or less than 0.2%. You can check this number on your brokerage account or go directly to the ETF website. All ETFs and their holdings can be looked up on their website. The second thing that you need to pay attention to is what the ETF is holding in its basket. What the ETF is holding should correlate directly with your investment objective. Let's pick IVV for example. Let's go to iShares website and enter IVV. Now let's see what the ETF is holding. And as you can see, these are the top 10 holdings of this ETF. Simple. Based on what we just talked about, here are the top 10 ETFs that I like. A good portfolio based on ETFs should have a blend of different types of ETFs. This ETF portfolio has 4 ETFs that focus on dividend, because this channel is all about dividends and getting rich from dividends. 2 ETFs that follow US firms in general. This includes dividend companies and non-dividend companies. 1 ETF that follows international stocks, because you do not want to miss out on good companies that are outside the US. 1 ETF that follows the financial sector. Why? Well, because Warren Buffett loves financials and because there are a lot of good banks out there. And 2 bonds ETFs, because a balanced portfolio needs to have some exposure to bonds. Be sure to look at the expense ratios. Notice that the expense ratios are very low except the one highlighted in yellow. I have made this exception. You can make exceptions as well, just as long as you're aware of what you're doing. Let's pick an ETF and walk through it. SCHD is an ETF from Schwab. We go to Schwab's website and look at the expense ratio, which in this case is 0.07. Check. Then we look at the ETF's holdings. Ta-da! These are the top 10 holdings of this ETF. You will notice that they are all dividend pairs. Let's try another one. How about Vanguard Fund VIG? First thing we look at is the expense ratio, which is 0.08. Check. Next thing we look at is what is this ETF holding? And are you content with these holdings? If you are, then invest in it. Otherwise, don't. Try the same formula for the rest of the ETFs. Remember, ETFs should correlate with what your aim is here. What percentage you assign to each ETF is totally up to you, but here's a suggested pie that I personally have. Most of the percentage is assigned to ETFs that focus on stocks. Only 20% is assigned to ETFs that have bond exposure. This is because I like stocks a lot more than I like bonds. And frankly, stocks have a lot better return than bonds, so why not? I hope this video was enough to get you started with ETFs. Remember, investing is boring. Keep it boring and you will be very happy in the long run. Do you own any ETFs? And what kind of ETFs do you like to invest in? Leave a comment. Be sure to hit that like button and do not forget to subscribe.